Today we're welcoming a good friend of mine, Avron Anstey from Lumenova. Avron is one of the executives out at Lumenova, and they're working in the key field of AI ethics. And we've had some conversations over the last 6 to 8 months, and I'm so impressed with the company and impressed with Avron and what they do, and it's such an important field. AI ethics, especially in the corporate realm, is so critical right now. Digital Dilemmas is a Lenk Media original podcast. Thank you, Avron, for spending a little time with us on a Friday afternoon. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's so nice to spend time with the two of you as well.
Great. Well, welcome aboard.
So I'm also thrilled to have you here. John and I have obviously been talking a lot about AI and AI ethics, and I keep comparing it. I'm old, so I remember before the internet existed for everyone, and to me it feels very similar, to when the internet went mainstream, and there was so much fear. And it was like the Wild West, and there was no regulation, there were no watchdogs, and people didn't really know how to approach it and how to handle it, and I even looking back with hindsight, I think the U.S. certainly could have done a better job. I think other countries did a better job in terms of regulation and ethics and all of that. And I think we sort of let it slide. And I think here we are presented with sort of another opportunity, and we have a chance to get it right. And it seems like you are part of that.
Yes, I'm going to jump in because it's so interesting you bring that up, Burr, in that today, the EU AI Act. So what's happening is, because you mentioned regulations, so all the countries are talking about regulations, and we call them frameworks. Today, the EU AI Act, they came out and they actually approved everything, and they'll hopefully go into place sooner than later. And the good thing about that is that all the countries globally are all trying to come out with the AI frameworks. And this will hopefully make them obviously do it much quicker than previously. So everybody is trying to sort of catch up with everybody else. We're dealing with Australia as well. They also have come up with their frameworks. Singapore already there. And so every single week, something new happens. Even this whole new thing that came out with Taylor Swift over the last week, that I do believe is actually going to make the US, make these regulations come out much quicker than later.
Absolutely. And thank you. I try to drag Taylor Swift into every episode of the podcast. So you just did my job for me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. So tell me a little bit about, tell us, and I know John knows, but just what does your company do?
So Lumenova, what we do is we are an all-in-one hub for AI assessment, risk, and compliance. So the objective here is that companies, they can use our solution to make sure that all of their AI models are meeting all the regulations, and that they're compliant to the regulations, they're transparent, there's no bias, and so they are what we call responsible AI. And the main 5 principles of responsible AI are fairness, to make sure there's no bias, make sure the decisions aren't based on any discrimination, there's transparency, there's accountability, privacy, and safety. So those are the 5 main principles of responsible AI that Lumenova helps a corporation comply with and meet these responsible AI principles.
That's awesome. You're really a pioneer.
Well, I also have to give a lot of credit to the team. I feel I'm very, very fortunate. I work with the most incredible people. I do the business development within the company. The strength of Lumenova is actually the depth and strength of our technical team and our data scientists. And what is incredible about this team is they've been working together for many, many, many years. This company's been around for the one part of the initial company's been around for a long, long time. So these people have been working together for a long time together, enjoy working with each other. And that makes my life much easier. And it's just such an absolute pleasure I speak to big corporations. A lot of the corporations I speak to globally on a day-to-day basis are from the companies that need to meet the regulatory compliance. They're used to that. So the totem pole is financial institutions, then insurance, telco, and then say healthcare. They understand. Yeah.
I work in healthcare, but
Okay.
my next question was actually going to be, where are you seeing, what industries are you seeing the most response from? So I'd love for you to get a little more into that.
Yes. So as I said, those are the four. It's financial services, insurance, telco, and healthcare. And once again, the major reason is they used to regulations. They understand that they need to comply with all of this. And also, when I was actually reading the EU AI Act from this morning, the important part about the whole thing is, and let me just look at it quickly, the important part about it is that it says there, the act shifts the burden of risk onto the organization themselves. So if they don't have all of the AI models meeting these regulations, there are huge fines for non-compliance. So it's all to do that the company themselves need to make sure that they are compliant with all of these different frameworks that are coming out.
I'm going to switch to John for a second. That brings up something that I think that you brought up, I think, when you were first talking to Avron about all of this, about here in America, sadly, generally things have to make financial sense as well as ethical sense for companies to broadly adopt it. And so John was talking to me about it, and can you talk a little bit about what you were saying about the need for a financial incentive to
some of the initial conversations, and Avron, you can jump in here if you've had the same experience. A lot of the companies that I had originally spoken to, the pushback I get is that the issue of compliance, in this case, it's AI compliance or AI ethics, they saw it as an expense. They did not see it as an investment. And there was a little bit of hesitance as to, should we spend money now, or should we make as much money as we can first, and then just before it breaks, spend some money on ethical compliance? And it seemed to be, to me, that's such an American thing, is to let's go all out, make as much money as we can first, and then when we start to break things, then we'll worry about compliance issues, because it's an expense. And then I started to have conversations where if they turn it around a little bit, see it as an investment, as a way to make money, as a way to stay ahead of your competition, such that you give customer the customers feel that they're safe. And I know that right now a lot of the public feels unsafe with emerging tech. And if you're a brand that can brag about being extremely compliant, extremely safe with their data, extremely safe with the AI tools you're using, it can be an advantage to you. So that seemed to be more of what I was running up against. And Avron, I don't know, what's your experience?
Well, you bring up an important point in that I speak to business leaders, not the data scientists, the business leaders. I'm going to step back going back one step. What has happened is that before, the data scientists were building the AI models, and also within that same department, they were managing the risk as well. That risk has now been moved to a whole different department. That could be the risk department, compliance, internal audit, in-house counsel. Or else then a lot of these big corporations are creating their own AI risk department.
Right.
So I speak to those people who don't really understand exactly how all of this works, and they're looking for a company like Lumenova that have got a platform that they can use, and makes it very easy for them to look at all the regulations and run those against all of the AI models, all in one platform, and see the status of each one of those. So it gives them that ability. So when I do speak to these business leaders, The major questions they ask me is, I say to me, what are your big issues, okay? And the biggest issues are two things. One is the risk to reputation with their customers. Let's say they're a bank, and one of the AI models is it's a loan. It's an AI model is giving out loans, and it's not giving out loans to, say, females between the age of 25 or 30, and somehow that gets out of the public, and risk to reputation is always the biggest concern, rightly so, for everybody. And the next one is compliance with a growing list of regulations. So going back to the point, John, that you made is they've also been waiting around, but now that the regulations are coming out, they have to do something about it.
Right.
So that's what's going to be the big change.
And I'm sure you're running into this. One of the issues that to share with others is most companies are global brands, even if the medium-sized brands. We deal with all different countries. And as we know, yesterday the EU acted. They have a new AI Act that's official. So that we have the European countries, we have American laws, we have Asian laws, we have Australia. So if you are a brand, you have to be compliant with AI frameworks in all these different countries. And that's a challenge.
Exactly. And that is also a very big feature and strength of what the Lumenova platform does, in that in one platform, these risk managers or compliance people have the ability to look at one screen and see the status of all of the AI models in each of the different countries related to the different frameworks. So it'll show, okay, yes, or we've got 50 models in the US against NIST in the US. What's the status of each of those? Okay, now we're going to look at the EU AI. Now we're going to look at Singapore. Now we're looking at Australia, and so on and so on.
Right.
To your point, we have to think about from a business leader's perspective. We want to make this just one platform where it's very easy for them to see exactly what is going on and who is working on different things. Also, another point you made earlier, John, is, and this came up, we were invited to a conference at the end of November. It was a JP Morgan conference in New York, where we spoke on AI governance. And it was an AI finance conference. So it was all the very big financial institutions and a lot of actually banks also from Europe. And a big message that came from us and also from other people out there was, we had mentioned that there's a big advantage, okay, to actually having the AI governance from the very beginning. What we said and what everybody else said is that you want to start putting in these sort of governance and frameworks as you actually start developing the AI models. Because coming back later, there's so much extra work involved. Okay, so putting in, there's a huge competitive advantage the way we say it is, okay, because you have the ability to anticipate any risks. You also ensure all the AI models are ethical and they meet all the legal regulations. Going back to something else you also mentioned, you want to make sure that the customers can trust these AI models. So you want to ensure that they are tested from the very beginning. And also something that we are very aware of when we speak to these big corporations, using a solution like Lumenova, you can accelerate the AI adoption with accuracy, and also there's all the risks controlled initially. A lot of these companies, they've got data scientists building AI models, but it takes a long time for them to test them and put them into production. And we help us accelerate that adoption as well.
Yeah, coming from a software development background way back in the 80s and 90s myself, I get what you're saying. If you have to build something, then go back and fix something to be compliant, it's just, it's like spaghetti. It's going to be really challenging. It's a spider web. But if you build it,
so I want to add something big, because I just remember saying I'm speaking to a big financial institution right now. And the person who is our big champion over there, he manages all of the AI models with an Excel spreadsheet. Okay.
Wow.
So you
Sweet
can imagine
Jesus.
this is a big financial institution. They got all these AI models. It's got a spreadsheet trying to track what's going on with each one of them.
Wow.
And there's new AI models coming to production on a regular basis.
Right.
So that's where huge benefits of something like a Lumenova solution comes into play for someone like them.
Wow, that's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
From a consumer perspective, Avron,
Mm-hmm.
you deal with these companies every day. You're in tune with what they're doing from an AI ethics perspective. For the consumers out there that might be worried that the AI tools, they scare them.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing that leadership in the United States and in Europe that at least a majority of the leaders are taking this seriously and consumers can, how should consumers feel? Let me ask you.
I don't think the consumer themselves are that concerned yet. I think this is just more the business leaders, rightly so, are having these discussions. And also, I spend a lot of time just educating people on the calls that I have on a day-to-day basis. These
Yeah.
business leaders don't understand it rightly so. So it's really just educating them and then helping them put some sort of like solutions like Lumenova into place. But I think, John, your question is the public themselves concerned? I don't think as of yet. I think they are using things like ChatGPT. They are using things, really enjoying it. And from their perspective, it's all fine. The people that are now starting to see the need for some sort of guardrails are, I'm speaking to a lot of law firms. The law firms, they themselves understand that, if they use something like a chat GPT and they're putting information in about a certain case, that now just becomes access for that information is now available for everybody. So I think as more people start using it, they're going to understand that there could be challenges for them.
What's your take?
Mm-hmm.
This probably has nothing to do with your job
Mm-hmm.
description right now, but just me and you and Amber chatting about AI. What's your take? What would you share with others regarding the future of jobs?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just like my take is just to tee you up? It's like any other technology that's come
Mm-hmm.
along over the last 40, 50
Mm-hmm.
years. When something new comes along, there's
Mm-hmm.
some job loss, then there's some job gain
Mm-hmm.
as people need to learn the new skill because there'll be new jobs created. So it's a little bit of both. Do you see it that way or do you see it differently this time?
I see the exact same way. As I said, AI is not going to take your job. As someone who knows AI is going to take your job. And when I look
Right.
at it as it's not going to take a person's job, it just makes you so much more efficient. And I was speaking
Right.
to a very interesting podcast, and she was focused specifically on how it is helping consultancy firms.
Mhm.
And the analogy she used that it makes a mediocre employee a good employee. They now have access. They not only have the access, they have a better way of compiling data so that it is much more effective and usable.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I see it the same way,
Mm-hmm.
both in the classroom and for looking out into
Well,
industry. Go
tell
ahead,
about.
Amber.
No, I just think the example from the other day with your students, how
Oh
you
yeah.
tasked them with using,
Yeah.
AI has been a huge issue for students. Both we have two teenage sons who are in high school. It's been, their teachers have been learning how to incorporate it into their schoolwork and also at the higher education level. So
Mm-hmm.
John tried something the other day, and I just think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it is a great example. So we set up in the classroom a debate so that we could learn civil discourse, learn the different perspective of different parties. So we had four teams. We had one group of students representing Congress, U.S. Senate. We had another group of students representing parents,
Mm-hmm.
parent lobby. Another group was representing Silicon Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and the fourth group was representing medical community, health reports. And
Okay.
they each debated uh, protecting children online and child safety through social media. You
Okay.
know, just like very similar to the debates that occurred on Capitol Hill yesterday with Zuckerberg and crew.
Mhm.
So I assigned this, Avron, on a Wednesday night, and Monday they came in and debated for a full hour, roughly.
But you
Each
told
team,
them to use AI.
I told them they could use anything they wanted, Google, AI, but get together with your four teammates, represent Silicon Valley, represent the parent lobby, whatever their position was, and come in and make an argument for how you think child safety should be legislated or not, and why, to these hearings. So
Right.
long story short, Avron, they came in on Monday and each made 15 to 25-minute presentations that blew me away.
Okay.
They knew details about Section 230, different articles of different regulations in different states, the California Child Safety Act, et cetera, et cetera. So these debates were not only civil, intelligent, and had depth to them,
Mhm.
that I was so impressed that literally these were subjects I'm not going to have the lecture on because they were able to learn them themselves in these 4 days and then verbalize it, debate it, listen to it, and push back. So I asked them afterward, did you use AI to help you in your knowledge?
Mhm.
Most of them said yes, or at least, a good number of them. It helped them save time
Mhm.
and get up to speed so much quicker than a typical lecture would have.
Mhm.
It might have taken me 3 or 4 weeks to lecture on these various topics. Instead, over 4 days, they took their assignment, used AI as their muse, their buddy, their intelligent friend, and got up to speed on whatever angle they were representing in these hearings. And literally in 2 classes now knew these topics
Well, it
pretty,
elevated the level of the discourse.
yeah, it was just
Yeah. Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah. That is
So
incredible.
an example of getting up to speed really quickly
Mhm.
and doing better at your job that you might have been able
Mhm.
to do 3 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it goes back to how you initially started this. When computers came out and the internet, it was what is
Right.
going to happen here, okay? And that I do believe it's the exact same analogy. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I have a friend's daughter. She's started an MBA at USC, and I said to her, so, what have they said about you using ChatGPT? And they've encouraged it. I'm like, okay, fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
That's it.
We,
That's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just from we've John's been speaking at high schools, and obviously is a professor at a university, and like I said, we've got two high school kids. At the beginning of the school year, I talked to them about AI, and I said, you need to learn how to use this. This is a tool.
Mhm.
And they looked at me and they were like, that's not what our teachers say.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that has changed so much.
Mhm.
In one semester, it has come full circle to the point where they are now, thankfully, being taught how to use it as a tool.
Mhm.
yeah, we're doing that in the class. I not all, everybody's different, but in my classes, everyone, the point is learn how to use it. And when you do use it, source it, be transparent, tell us what tool you used, what questions and prompts you asked it, what sources it may have given you as to, its
Exactly.
findings,
Mhm.
such that they can learn the strengths and weaknesses of AI. Where is it good? Where does it not work so well? How does it help you be a better worker?
Mhm. Well, since we are on that topic, this let's start talking about generative AI and large language models for a
Right.
moment. And
Right.
I'd mention law firms because obviously, there's been all these law cases where lawyers have come along and started quoting cases which were invalid. And that's because, the large language model, ChatGPTs, it's going to be a hallucination. If you ask it a question, it's going to give you
Right.
an answer, and it's going to be, very certain. These are the answers, and these are the cases. It's not going to say I can't find a case. So, and that is also a very big strength of Lumenova. And because of the depth of our technical team, we were able to dive into this very quickly and already start building out the necessary guardrails that are needed when it comes to the large language models and generative AI. And that's what our team is very much, building on right now, working out, how we can help corporations feel comfortable using large language models internally, or it could be one of the public ones. And even when I mentioned we were speaking at the conference, the AI Finance Conference in New York, afterwards there were a lot of questions that came up. The conference was all about what we spoke about as AI governance, and then a lot of companies were asking us about large language models.
Right.
Can they be confident in using them? And those are a lot of the tools we are building out. So it's interesting, whenever I have most of my calls right now, they start pivoting to this because people understand it and want to start saying, how can we start using it? And mainly, how can they use it safely and efficiently?
100%. I can totally see you're in a workplace, a law firm, healthcare company, whatever. You're in the office, social media manager, and you're using a large language model to help you do some research, get some information, create some content, and you want to feel safe using the LLM tool.
Yes. And that's a big thing, what we are pushing right now. Well, I wouldn't say pushing, what we are building on right now, and one of the big features, so that a company, we can have very strong trust and privacy safeguards for the generative AI, and that enables the organization to confidently use generative AI. And also we include technical large language model assessments as well, so they can test them. So these are a lot of the things that we are constantly building on, and that's where the strength of Lumenova comes in with our technical team.
That's great. I did not know you guys were moving into that area, but I can see it being such a huge need in the workplace, and the fact that you guys are tackling that, I'm fascinated by that, because I think that's going to be a big usage of AI.
It's a very big usage. The big corporations, as we keep mentioning, ChatGPT, they're using all these public large language models. The big corporations are all starting to have their own large language models for their own companies. So the companies ABC, they're going to have their ABC large language models. So it's all just within the corporation themselves. So what we do is, we can do a comprehensive evaluation of their large language models to ensure the effectiveness, the fairness, security, and reliability of what the data that they are using. So, there are different ways that we do this. There are some of the tests we are doing. There's a thing called model performance. We also test for model robustness, model fairness. There's prompt injection, and hallucination is what a lot of people know about. We are testing that as well. Two other new ones that we have come out are these things called test embedded evaluations, and the last one is a thing called RAG evaluation. So we are building on this as fast as we can as these things come out.
I was going to say, it feels like you and your company and the work that you're doing is sort of staying on the crest of a wave, like staying ahead, because this is happening so fast. It's every day it's new and it's different and it's changing, and people's perceptions are changing, and companies, are realizing that it's a thing. It seems to me like that companies like yours will almost be like a default. Like, of course you have a company that does this. Where now it's like people are like, what? How do I do this? Are there companies that do this? And do you feel the same way?
Yes, I'm going to answer that, because I speak a lot to law firms globally, and their clients are coming to them saying, well, this is AI regulations. What are we going to do? So we are very clear. We are the technical platform, but we still need the legal advice. We aren't going to be interpreting the actual law itself. But the law firms can now go to their clients and say, okay, fine, here's a platform, Lumenova, that you can use, and we will help guide you set up the different frameworks for what we call different risk units, being the different departments, because each department is slightly different. Let's say in the US, there's the NIST regular framework that's come out. And let's say there are 98 regulations. So the HR department, maybe only 40 of the regulations are pertinent to them. So you can switch off the other ones. Now you've got the loan department, they only need 70. So we give them the ability to actually set up for what we call these different risk units.
I would think, Avron, if you're a law firm or any of these companies, you'd want to brag about the fact that the AI tools you're using in-house are safe, and here's why. For attracting employees, for retaining customers, attracting new customers, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions regarding, hiring practices,
in my
etc.
industry, we've seen it already with certain insurance companies running afoul with using AI, and it's the backlash was severe and instant.
Well, I want to jump into the insurance because insurance has been the last few weeks the majority of companies be speaking to, and the reason why that is because Colorado, they've come out with their regulations, which start in November of this year. And this is for life insurances in Colorado that they need to be compliant. And because of this, Colorado coming out first, California and New York are not happy about that. So they are trying to jump ahead of anybody else. But the important part, going back to Amber, what you said is the insurance companies, the regulations are coming out. They now have to really start getting out there and being compliant. So I'm speaking to a lot of these insurance companies that they were saying, well, because they need something, and this is what Lumenova does. What's interesting about that as well is I was speaking to a law firm, and last year a law came out in New York, because John, you mentioned HR, okay?
Right.
Last year a law came out in New York called the Law 144, and this prohibits employees and employment agencies from using automated employment decision tools unless they can ensure there's been a bias audit. Okay, so they can ensure that there's no bias in any of these decisions that this automated employment decision tool is doing. Okay, we call it's called an AEDI. And I was speaking to a law firm, and they already had a lawsuit. And they said the challenge they've got is that right now there's no way of them proving that there's no bias yet. And they said if their client was already using Lumenova, they could at least go to court and say that they are taking the necessary steps to be compliant in itself.
And in a lot of cases, that's probably enough for a judge to say, okay, they're doing the best they can.
Yes, and that's exactly what he said to me. He said, Avron, right now, I don't really have a case. I'm sort of like trying to work out how I can fight this. If I could go exactly what you said, John, they can say, we are taking the necessary steps to mitigate this risk. That in itself is something that's all that he needed to actually go back to court with. Yeah.
Do you have to deal with media companies? Like if you worked at the New York Times or the LA Times and they are using AI for story generation or sourcing stories, do media brands and journalists, do they have a need for tools like Lumenova, or is that something else?
I don't have an answer here. I would think there's a use case. I personally haven't dealt with them as of yet. But I do foresee that's coming now. With there's so much in the news about what these news corporations are doing. So it'll be interesting to see how that does play out and what the actual use case is.
Right.
Another industry, because you bring up industries, John. Another industry which has been very interesting is from the financial institution side of it is private equity and VCs and investment banks. So right now, when they are looking to purchase or make an investment in a company, they are doing a due diligence. But now they also need to do due diligence on the AI models of that company, because what happens if those AI models aren't doing what they should be doing, and now there's huge legal implications of that.
Right, and the company might appear to be doing well, but might be on the verge of not doing well because they weren't compliant.
Well, and
And
also, they are telling this investment firm that the AI model is doing certain things, but this way they can evaluate the AI models for any of their potential investments and also their portfolio companies to ensure the performance of these AI models aligns with the company's claims and thus reducing the legal risk for bias and discrimination in those AI models.
Right. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
What about as we segue to entertainment, what about the entertainment industry? You're out in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's a huge industry out there.
Mm-hmm.
Any use for guidelines, frameworks, and tools like Lumenova in the entertainment space?
I personally haven't come across it yet. I know there's a lot of talk. There was I was just watching I was just watching this webinar the other day, and it came up, and there's just a lot of talk as to, obviously because of what happened last year, as to how they can use. Is there going to be a need for a tool like Lumenova so that they can make sure they are compliant? But I don't see the use case as of yet personally.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, just as you travel around,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that a lot of the entertainment companies are using AI for
Mm-hmm.
writing and
Mm-hmm.
content creation of all
Mm-hmm.
sorts. Is there any buzz or chat about, job loss, quality of work, better or worse? What's the conversation out there?
I think that the conversation is initially is that, oh, there's going to be job loss. But I think it goes back to what we said. People are starting to realize that they can be more efficient and there's a benefit to actually using this. So I think it's going to be the exact same thing where everybody's like, oh, I was writing scripts by hand and then I started using a typewriter and then now a computer came out. What's going to happen? And there's just all these benefits. And I think they are now seeing the benefits and the advantages of actually using their technology.
Yeah, and I know when I was first in the industry, it's more about getting a lot more done quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making this up, I'm not a writer. If I could do
Yeah.
2 scripts in a month
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, maybe I can do 4 or 5
Yep.
scripts in a month. I'm making that up, obviously, but
well,
just be more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
well, it's interesting because people used to ask me, because I'm old, what should I if I'm going to learn how to do one thing, what should I learn how to do? And I used to say, learn how to code.
Mm-hmm.
That was my answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my answer now
Mm-hmm.
because we're not going to need to know how to code. We're going to
Yep.
have there's going to be machines that do that for
Mm-hmm.
us. But it's interesting just in the past 10 years that has changed. It's an amazing time to be alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's just people say, everyone. I wake up every day. It is so exciting. It's
Yeah.
incredible because John, it goes back to what you said. It's changing so quickly. When we were talking about large language models and generative AI, when I speak to corporations, I'm very transparent. This is moving very quickly. A strength of Lumenova is we've got our very strong technical team, so we can build things and we understand that. We are saying, here's our platform, and this is what it is. We are making the necessary changes. So when we deal with big corporations as well, we say to them, we'll work with you. And they like the idea of us actually working closely with them because as new things come up, then they will get those features and we can build it to their actual needs as well.
Got it. Totally get it. And I agree. And it's one of the reasons we have this show, Avron, is we're trying to reach an audience to share this information in such a way that people can understand
Regular
this isn't,
people like
yeah,
me who are
this
not.
isn't the end of the world. This isn't the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We can get a handle on this and talk about it and share and be transparent about what's going on today without putting our hands over our eyes and thinking that that all
And
hell's
without
breaking loose.
panicking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
And I do this 24/7, and let me tell you, I am learning every single day.
Right. Yeah.
I'm reading. I listen to podcasts nearly every single night. At the end of the day, I've got a set podcast, Normally I work out and I listen to my podcast while I work out, and it's just like, it's just changing every day. I don't say anybody that says they're an expert when it comes to this. That's interesting, but I don't know how. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's like when I got into social media listening and analytics 10 years ago, and the field was about 12 months old, and I used to see people say they were an expert on it, or it was on their resume that they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. I'm like, that's interesting. It's only been
Yeah.
around for a few
Exactly.
months.
Now I want Avron's advice for our personal life,
Yes.
because we have you're into television, movies, yes?
Yes, very much so.
So we are in the market for shows. We need more content to watch. And
Yes.
like we need content that falls into the Venn diagram of what I like and what John likes.
Okay.
So far, I'll tell you what we watch now. We
Yes.
watch The Morning Show.
Okay.
We watch The Old Man, which
Oh man, I need to take this down. We've
Oh,
got
write
a
this down.
list going over
So
here.
one of
Hang
my
a
good
second,
friends,
okay?
Andrew Katz, he was on
I
our first
recommended it.
episode.
This is such a good example of the fact that I recommended it a year ago, and you're giving
Okay.
credit to Andrew Katz for recommending it 2 weeks ago. The Old Man is it's actually very good. And what else is just ER? We went back and we're doing
We
a
went back
throwback.
to
We're
watch
watching
ER, but
ER.
I'm watching right now Masters
Oh,
of the Air.
the
Okay,
Spielberg.
well, let me throw in Fargo.
Really?
Okay, now this is Fargo. Everybody's like, oh, the movie. I said, no. There's a TV show, and I don't know how many. I think it's been like four different series. Okay, maybe even 5. Each one is different, and they're all absolutely excellent. The last time we just finished the last one now. It's, highly recommend it. Yes.
Oh, that's great. Is it funny?
Yes.
It's humorous. Is it funny?
No, I wouldn't say funny, but well done, and
Well
just
done.
done in that sort of, and just the way that it's done exceptionally well. Yes. If you don't talk about funny, there's a show, Australian show I started watching, and now that I've mentioned to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm watching that. I've watched that. It's very good." And I've got a group of friends, and we normally recommend to each other. I'm like, "Why didn't you recommend it to me?" Okay, and I'm looking it up right now. It's called Deadlock. Okay. So it's it's actually it's a detective show about a murder in a small town in Australia. So it's actually a detective show, but the people in the show are hilarious. So I mean, laugh
This is
out
right up
loud
Amber's
hilarious.
alley.
Okay.
This is right. This could be our show, John.
Deadlock.
Deadlock, yeah.
Deadlock.
That's a Prime, yes. Random. I just suddenly came across it. Excellent, yes.
Well,
Oh, I
that's
can't
the thing.
wait.
There's so much
That's the
content.
thing. That's why we do this with our guests. You're not the first guest we've asked this question of, but because there's so much content out there, it is hard to be aware even of everything that's out there, and let alone know what's good.
Well, I thought, well, I've got friends in the industry, like someone, he texted me this morning about a new show. So he updates me as well. We've got a nice group of people. And so I haven't even looked at the one he sent me this morning. It's like a new one. So to your point, so we are very clear. We normally watch a show for like 5 or 10 minutes. We don't like it, we move on. We're on to the next one already. Okay,
Exactly.
That's it. Movies, okay, this is about this. Have you heard of it based on a book called The Boys in the Boat?
Yes. So I am
Okay.
obsessed with this movie
Uh-huh.
because it's been promoted fairly heavily. And at first I was like, what is this? Why do I care? Why do I care about some crew team? But it has big names attached to it. Tom Hanks, I think, is involved. George Clooney.
George Clooney, I think he directed it, yes.
Yeah, George Clooney.
The book itself, I read the book many years ago, and there's something about the book. It's just incredible to listen to what the grit of these people, okay, and what their lives they went through. And that's always stuck with me just reading that book. I mean, the movie came out, a friend went to watch it, and I was apprehensive about watching it myself, and he said, no, it is very good. and we watched it, and it was excellent. And there's a lot of and it's all true. So afterwards, I actually watched the documentaries of like what actually took place and what actually eventually transpired, and looking at what was going on in Germany at the time, what was going on, the history was going on in the US at the time. So it does highly recommended, yes.
Excellent.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
one we
for
should
free.
watch with the boys. I feel like
Yeah.
they'd like that one.
Yeah, and I've heard of that now that Avron mentions it, and absolutely we do want to see that. And that's 3 good recommendations. We have Fargo,
Mhm.
Deadlock.
and Boys in the Boat.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Your work here is done.
Uh-huh. Until next time.
Until next
Until next time. And we will
time.
definitely have you back, Avron. You've been a great host. I mean, a
That's
great
an absolute
guest.
pleasure. And Burr, so nice to meet you. Normally I
So nice to
chit-chat
meet
with
you.
John, but now to meet both of you is really an absolute pleasure, truly.
Well,
Lovely
it's been
to
a
meet you
pleasure
as
having
well.
you on. You've been awesome. We wish you much success at Lumenova and keep doing what you're doing. We need you.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to having you back real soon. All right, Digital Dilemma fans, that wraps up another episode. Thanks for tuning in and navigating our tech world with us.
Please rate us and leave a review. And if you enjoyed it, tune in next time. We'd also love it if you would send us any questions or suggest guests via email. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Digital Dilemmas is a Lenk Media original podcast.